Hey everybody, it's me, it's Jazz. Not that you don't know, because my name is on the name of the channel. Whatever. But anyway, I'm Jazz, and today actually I'm going to do a haul, because I have a huge bag. I want you guys to see it. Huge bag of books and stuff that I got actually a couple weeks ago. So my local library was having they have like a sort of like used bookstore. I think like when they like turn over books that people may not be wanting to read anymore, or they get new books and things like that. So they had a sale where you can bring your own bag, and actually they even have bags too if you didn't have one. But you bring your own bag and fill it up, and everything that's in it is $5. If you wanted to get a box, it's $10. But I wanted to share the things that I got because a lot of these were really, really good finds. I think I got like more than I expected to get. And some of these are like more culture based. Some of them are just more aesthetic things, or just some things that kind of like caught my interest. So the first book, which I have read this book before, but I needed to have my own copy because my mom had a copy of Becoming by Michelle Obama. I loved this book when I first read it. My mom actually got the book, and then she had the audiobook. So I actually was reading it with the audiobook, and I don't know, this is like a really beautiful book. I really enjoyed this. I wrote a blog post about this. So it's like, now I have my own copy, so I can go back and reread at my leisure, rather than like trying to borrow my mom's copy. Some of these are a little faith-based. Like I said, some of these are things I just found. So this one is called The Love Exchange, and this one it's an adventure in prayer, and it really has to do with do you have 6 minutes a day to spare? 6 short minutes each day. That doesn't sound like much time, does it? But it is all the commitment you need to start down the path to a richer spiritual life. And so this is more like a faith-based book. So anyone who knows me personally is that I am really, really, really adamant about my faith as a Christ follower. So a lot of times I'm always looking for like devotionals or things that can kind of help me with my own spirituality, and my own relationship with God, and Jesus Christ. This one, I had heard about this book, but I'm interested to read it just because this one is kind of, the title is it's like a ripped off sticker on it. It's called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, Mars and Venus in the Bedroom, which it's just funny because like I'm not reading, just so you know, I'm not reading this for any particular purpose. It's just that I've heard about it, and I'm like, I want to know what this is about. So actually, if you've read it, tell me if it's a good book, or if, you know, it's worth reading. I mean, I'm not really into like relationship books, like on how to have a healthy relationship. I'm an avid Bible reader. Literally, there's so much relationship stuff that's in that. So I feel like reading relationship books is kind of like daunting, you know, especially like for me as like a person who's single and has had some serious relationships. I just feel like, I don't know, I think it's interesting because not everyone's perspective is always going to be the right perspective that works for you. But I just think I'm just going to read this as more of like an objective, and a more of an objective perspective. So this one, I actually used to own the entire 50 Shades series. I found this one, I said, I'll just take it. And it's like, so the thing is like, I actually used to own the entire series, and then I lent it to somebody because she wanted to read them. And it's been like it's been well over 5 years, and I still haven't gotten that series back. And I'm really still pissed about it because I spent money on that and not to get it back. So I got the first book because that was the first one I saw. I was like, why not? So I know like books like these are kind of controversial, but I'm like, well, why not? That's a fun read at some point. So into the more culture-based stuff. So I actually here's the thing about this title. I have no idea what this book is titled. I don't know what it's about, but it is written in what looks like Greek, because I actually had plans to pick up Greek at some point. And I saw this and it was like, this looks like Greek to me. It's all Greek to me. And so I was thinking like, this would be really great because like if I actually decided, you know, when I get to have the time and have the, like when I'm deciding to, whatever it is I decide to learn Greek, I at least have something that I can go off of and be able to look and read and analyze and annotate. So I have no idea what this is. So if you speak Greek, I would love for you to tell me what this means. Or like if you've heard of this book before, if it's good or not. This one is a really old looking book. It is the new complete stories of great operas. So this one is literally, it's by Milton Cross. You can tell that this book looks like it's been well loved. It has been read. It is basically where all of like the most famous operas like in the world, they tell them, they actually write the stories out so you can kind of figure out like what's going on. Because like for me, I have gone to operas before. My favorite is Die Zauberflöte. This is a German opera. It is The Magic Flute, Mozart. And I love it. So it's like if you are, let's say, I think this is a great like thing to have like when you're going to an opera and you've never really seen it before. You've never seen it before, you don't know the story. This would have been helpful like a few years back because I actually used to intern for a costume designer, and she was working on a show with an opera theater company here. It was The Tales of Hoffmann, and I had never heard of that before. It's a French opera, and I just kind of like, of course, like I can kind of follow along based on what the actors are doing, and usually they have subtitles, but I don't really like subtitles because sometimes they're not always 100% accurate, if that makes sense. So just being able to actually go through and just know who all the characters are, what is the background of it, the original language, when it was first performed. Then they also have a part in the book that talks about opera etiquette. And I'm like, oh, this is really great. Because like, especially like if you're not familiar, like I'm familiar with operas to an extent. And I speak all of the languages that the operas are normally written in. Like operas are typically in German, French, and Italian. So I speak all three of those. So it's like part 2 is like how to enjoy an opera, brief history of opera, the ballet in opera, selected reading guide. So I'm really interested to like kind of go into this a little bit, especially because I do enjoy opera. I think it's beautiful. It's a beautiful art form. So this other one, I don't know why I picked this up. I really don't. It is called The 7 Levels of Intimacy, The Art of Loving and the Joy of Being Loved. This one just feels like it's more about like 7 levels of intimacy. I was like, I picked this up because I'm like, I really want to know what these 7 levels are. Not necessarily because I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to read this and it's going to be like the Bible and the Holy Grail of how to be intimate with somebody. No, I just really want to know what are these 7 levels. I just don't know. This is literally what I understand. Like chapter 1 is sex is not intimacy. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. And then I think like later on they go into like the different levels. I'm like, I just want to know. Like, guys, don't leave me alone in a bookstore. I swear. Do not leave me alone in a bookstore. I'll find like the most randomest things that catch my attention. So this one, I love Nina Garcia. I remember her from Project Runway. And I actually have read, I think, one of her other books, some of her other books, but she is like the style queen. So I got the little black book of style. So, and I know that like most of the books that she has written, they're mostly they're mostly illustrated. There's always like some fun quotes in there, and the font and the text is just really colorful, and just like the images, the illustrations are really fun to look at. But yeah, The Little Black Book of Style by Nina Garcia. So, and fashion was something that I really fell in love with, which is originally where my trajectory of my life was headed early on in my life. And I loved her books and a lot of stuff that she talked about. And I think one of her other books, I can't remember what book it was I was reading back in high school. High school just feels like, high school was literally 10 years ago. That's crazy. That's crazy. It's been 10 years since I've been in high school. But I just love how her, like how she was very detailed with like style, and like a lot of things that she said were really great points that I still today actually follow. So, but yeah, I think all her books are really, I just love how colorful that they are. So now on to like back to more cultural based things. This book, I've been thinking about getting a copy of this book because I really have been wanting to read it. I think I watched the movie, Anna Karenina. I wanted to get a copy of this. I don't know why I kept putting it off, but when they told me that they had this sale, I saw it on the shelf. I was like, it's going on the bag. It really is. Because I think like in the movie, I really liked the movie. It was a very like colorful and very like full of life type of film. And I just loved it. But I actually wanted to read the story because I just feel like I knew going into this was going to be a like really long book. So this is going to be like a book I can just kind of read like, how many pages is this? It's like 700 something pages. This is 700 something pages. So I was like, this is going to be a really fun read. And this is like translated so it's translated from Russian. And so I'm really interesting because I really like reading books that are not necessarily translated, but I like books that are written by authors, like by foreign authors, because it's really interesting, like when they describe the cultural aspects, things like that. I mean, of course, this is probably, pretty much fiction, but I do like how, like, even if it's a book that's written that takes place in another culture, and it was written by someone who's from that culture, you kind of get a good sense of what life was like living in during this time. So that's kind of how I feel about like Les Miserables, because like Victor Hugo, even though like a lot of his books Les Miserables is really a fictional book, and I actually listened to the whole 24-hour audiobook at one point, and it's interesting because it's fiction, but it really just depicts what life literally looked like during France during that time. Yeah. This one is more of a table read, like a book for decoration. This one is Bringing Tuscany Home, Sensuous Style from the Heart of Italy. This one is like, I love like the visual aspects of it, because it's very like vivid pictures. So I think it's like something great to look at, like when you're like a dinner table, coffee table, and then there's like, of course, like obviously writing for it, but it's like all these different things about like how to make your, basically create more of like a Italian inspired home, from things like your like invitation, your rooms, like recipes and things like that. So I think this is going to be an interesting thing to just kind of like look through. So just how to like make your home more Tuscany inspired. Okay. This last book, I know this story. I know that there's a movie, but I got a copy of Le Petit Nicolas, the little Nicholas. I know the movie because we watched it in French class, but I actually have the book now. And even though, like, of course, it's a used book, so you get to see like other people's annotations in it as like to like them, like because you can just tell that they were trying to figure out certain vocabulary words. And they kind of will mark those, so it's helpful, especially if they're words I don't already know. I'm gonna be able to have that. And this is also gonna be a great resource for like my students, because that way you can kind of get because like with my students, sometimes I want them to be exposed to native speaker content. So it's like interesting being able to get them to read excerpts from this book, and it's also illustrated too, so you get to see like some like fun pictures in there. So those are the books that I got. However, I did get some movies. So some of these are more like just fun. Like I got The Devil Wears Prada because I was obsessed with this movie. I went to fashion school. So it was like, when I went to fashion school, it was like, who hasn't seen this movie? And it's still a classic to this day, even though it came out in like 2006? Like it had been like the early 2000s. Mona Lisa's Smile. I don't know why, but like, this movie, like for some reason the title keeps popping up in my life, and I'm like, I need to get this. I need to see this, because my computer doesn't have a DVD player, but I have like a DVD player like plug-in at work. So like a lot of times if we have downtime, which is I have a lot of downtime sometimes, most days, and I can just pop in a movie. So, and some of these are movies I actually wanted. This one's actually one I've been wanting to see for a while. Matrix Reloaded. So this one, like, I know that there's so many references to this movie, but I need to get into it because I realize that, like, I know that there's like a lot of Matrix references, and I've seen like clips and pieces of it, but I really want to see like at least one of the movies. So I'm like, if you're a Matrix fan, like, don't hate me. But I really I was like, this is the only one that they had, but I was like, I really want to see a Matrix movie so I can kind of like put the pieces together where all these references are coming from. Another one that was like fun I got was Milk. So the thing is, this is based on a true story about a gay man who runs for office at some point in history. But I think first of all, I love stories that are based on true stories. I love like retellings of those, especially if they're done really well. I am not a member of like the LGBTQ plus community. I'm a cisgender straight female. So, but I do think that it's interesting to see that like different perspectives. Because the thing is, for me, is like my biggest thing is really just empathy, because even though I don't relate, I don't know what it's like to be attracted to someone of the same sex. I don't know what it's like to be, transgender or anything like that to those matters, but I'm really fascinated by their stories because, again, it's something, I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's just because I'm always attracted to things that are different than me. One of the reasons why I will probably never end up marrying an American. I just love people who are different from me because I feel like there's so much to learn and so many different perspectives to obtain. But I just really want to, because I've seen trailers for this and I'm like, I want to watch it. I want to know if this is a real person, like, I want to hear what their story is. So that's just kind of like a fun little movie to kind of like for perspective seeking, if that makes sense. So obviously I'll be the judge of whether they did the story well, and I always try to compare it and kind of look into like their stories. But yeah, I'm always curious about like, queer culture, even though I'm not a part of it. One of the things that I was reading, and I actually put it on my book club list and on our website, was I remember reading Queer Identities and Politics in Germany. It was about like the early LGBTQ plus movement that happened during the Weimar Republic, which is like in like the 1890s in Germany, and like how their laws kind of affected people's lifestyles, considering that like being, queer and having laws that prohibit you from being yourself. Obviously I will never have those affect me because, like I said, I'm a cisgender woman who's straight. So it's like, for me, I know that those wouldn't really affect me, like those laws would never affect me because I'm not a part of that community. But I'm just interested because, again, I love just different perspectives. Anyway, so moving on, I got South Pacific. I believe this is like one of those musicals that I like when I was in, I think from high school on back, like to like second or third grade, I've always been like a theater nerd. I went to performing arts school for theater, and South Pacific was one of those like Broadway shows that came up, like Rodgers Hammerstein. So I'm really excited to kind of like get into this because I've heard this is really good, and this is one of the Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals that I have not watched. So if you've seen this before and if you like it or not, please let me know. So then I got Visions of Italy. So this is more of like a documentary though, but it's like more of like a comparison of architectural styles between the north and the south of Italy. Because I know that like, even though like we think of like, oh, Italy, but the north and the south are very different in language, in culture, and even just, like even just in architecture, of course. So I just really wanted to have something to watch just as more of like a cultural aspect on that. Then I bought the Moulin Rouge. So I know that this is like one of those movies where to me it just feels like a classic. It's a 2 DVD set. It's got like a little pamphlet in there with some pictures and things like that. But I was like, I need to have this because I know that like, I know it's a pretty famous film, and I actually have been where I've actually seen the Moulin Rouge, like the actual cabaret. But it's just interesting to be able to see this, even if it's fiction. I still love I don't know, it's just appealing. It's gonna be a fun movie to watch. Lastly, I got The Interpreter. This one I have heard of because I know it was referenced in some like in a video I was watching about like the UN and the interpreters, and they were talking about, they make references to this movie as to like how I don't know, like I said, it's interpreters' lives may not match what's in this movie, but I think it'll be interesting to see like the perspective, like the fact that a main character is an interpreter, because I think that we don't really get to give a voice to those people who are really like, I mean, when you think about the UN, when you think about all these people, these diplomats who are all, I mean, when we think of like photo ops of like all these politicians and world leaders getting together, but we really don't see that there are people off to the side who are interpreting everything to make sure that they understand, each person understands what they're talking about. Interpreting is really hard work. It's one of the reasons why I feel really intimidated to do interpreting type of work, because it's like you have to make sure, there's so much pressure to make sure that everything is clearly interpreted, that you're using the right words. You're not, you know, I mean, I don't know, like it's kind of like if you don't interpret things the right way, you can basically start a war, you know, or you can just kind of like create some types of tension, if that makes sense. Interpreters are really, I feel like they're like they're kind of underrated. You know, when we think about it, it's like they're so important, but yet like in that profession, like they're in such high demand, but there's not as many people who can fully fulfill those requirements, which is why they stay busy all the time. So I'm really interested to see how they kind of portray like the perspective of someone who actually, I think Nicole Kidman, when in this movie, I think she plays someone who speaks like some type of language. I think it's like supposed to be like something that's like an African language as far as I know. I can't remember if they said it was like a made up, like part of it was made up and part of it wasn't, but I just think it'd be interesting. So that'll be fun to watch and go through. So those are all the things I bought. However, this is not something I bought at the sale, but I bought this literally today. I was at my Italian group and we were meeting at a library, we were meeting at a cafe that is inside of a bookstore. I have to show you. You guys are gonna think I'm so crazy to drop $100 on books, but I did anyway because this series has stolen my heart. Bought the entire Court of Thorns and Roses series. So most of the books that I read, if I really like it or if someone tells me to recommends it to me, I normally read it off of my Libby app. And for those of you who may not be in the United States, with Libby, if you have a library card, you can use it to kind of like check out audio and ebooks on your phone or any other certain devices. And so I use it to kind of like read books for free and then decide if I want to buy it. I love this series. I'm going to do a review on it on my personal channel. I bought the entire series. So, literally, the entire series. And I haven't read the fourth and the fifth book, so I'm giving you guys proof. I couldn't help myself. I couldn't help myself. So yeah, that's like something, I'm gonna do a separate review on that. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have read any of these books, please tell me what you think about them. And yeah, so I know we're getting into the holidays, so I'm really excited about like some other stuff I plan on doing. So, all right, talk to you later. Bye.